Hi guys, today we're going to cover the measurements of the SS tuning kit now that it has been fitted. So we have the fronts and we've got the rears on. A couple of disclaimers before we talk about this. I have, before I put the fenders on, 8.5 width wheel, 19-inch with a 38 offset. So with that by itself, the wheel's already sat pretty flush with the stock Fender, and so much so that I actually ended up having to roll the lip of the original Fender so hard that it actually bulged the Fender outward, and that's part of the reason why I'm having some fitment issues with this body kit. On top of that, I'm also sitting on Stita springs, and this being an all-wheel drive version of the Fusion, it ends up lowering it more than for those of you who have front-wheel drive. So those are a few disclaimers when it comes to figuring out how well this kit's going to sit on the car for you and what types of adjustments you're going to need. So off the bat, we're going to take a look, and on the front there's a variance from the edge of the original Fender out to the edge of the kit. You have a variance anywhere from about just a little bit over 1/4 inch here to where the main fender begins, where you have between 1 inch and close and about 1 inch to 1.25 inches in some parts. So, well, again, because of the bulging out that I've had, mine kind of varies maybe a little bit more, but about, like I said, between about 1 inch and between 1.25 inches, somewhere in the middle between like 1 inch and 1/2 quarter or whatever the heck that is, because I suck at math. So all around the perimeter of this thing, you get that variance with the front having the thickest part of the fender at approximately 1 inch and just over 1 inch from the fender of the original car of the body. When it comes to the outer part, if you're looking for additional kind of stance considerations or whatever you're all gonna do, the outer part measures just shy of 1 inch of the main part of the fender, and then if you measured all out the width of the fender itself, it's not exactly 4 inches, even though this tells me 4. Because you have to consider that the original fender underneath here slopes a little bit as well, so I really can't give you a good measurement on that. Down here you have this kind of little jet out at about 3/4 of an inch, and then it slims down as it tapers off towards the bottom, and you end up with this section right here, if you don't already run side skirts, where you have the original side skirts. So it's about just shy of, a bit shy of 1/2 inch that you end up with down here. I have side splitters that are not 3D carbon, unlike my rear and front bumper. So that's what, to me, I don't mind the fact that there's this kind of indent that the fender ends up forming, but some of you might mind that, not sure. I was really concerned with what this is going to look like stance-wise without cutting the original fender underneath out. I did not do that because my concern, if you remember from part 1, is fragility of the fenders, the SS tuning fenders, and if this thing were to ever crack or I wanted to take it off, then I end up being screwed because I've cut off the fender, original body fender, and now I'm stuck. So the fender body is factory underneath this, and we end up going with a super strong double-sided adhesive for the kit to start, and it actually doesn't end up being too bad for my taste. Again, mind you, even if you try to go real flush, now you're dealing with a carbon fiber new fender set, so you're not going to be able to roll that extra inch. So if you're going to stance all the way out flush, you better be sure that you have some real stiff suspension, or maybe you're airbagging it. Regardless, not sure, that's going to be your call. I forgot to mention, of course, too, my tire spec right now, 245 4019, which is something that rubs with the original Fender, and again, another reason I had to roll it, and now I'm dealing with all kinds of issues as a result. For the rears, depends what angle you're looking at the car from. I think the rears look not quite as deep as the fronts do, but again, it all depends on what angle you're looking at this from. And when it comes to measurements, interestingly enough, the rears are about 1.5 inches on the Fender, on the aftermarket SS tuning Fender, and the variance goes down around the sides there to about 1 inch. So in the thickest part, 1.5 inches, in the narrowest part, about 1 inch. As far as the actual jet out from the body, again with a disclaimer that the original Fender is rolling underneath there, so it's not a straight drop, but still this looks more like a 3-inch as opposed to a 4-inch on the front, which is why I was saying that the look of the back is less extreme. There's also this kind of diffuser almost look to the rear fenders, and measurement on that diffuser looking piece is about 1 inch sticking out. Here's kind of a side shot. If you don't go hella flush on your wheels, that from this direct back side you barely see the wheel. You kind of see a hint of the wheel there a little bit, but if I really wanted to stance this the way a Fender intends it to be, I would have the wheel sticking out all the way out here. But again, I have no trust in that it won't rub. Plus, I can't do it without cutting the fenders, and I'm not interested in doing that for the time being. So again, kind of a side shot from the back with my wheel setup not having any spacers, but the fenders being on. And here comes the shot from the front right here. So again, if I were to stance these things, this wheel should be as far out as maybe here, but like I said, it is not. So again, it's going to be a matter of taste and preference on what you want the look to be and how much work you're willing to put into this thing. Again, disclaimer that it's highly fragile, and if you're going to be doing that kind of work, I recommend trying to reinforce the fiberglass of these fenders, which my body shop said they could not do because they're too thin and flimsy, or maybe even considering injecting resin into the middle where there's a hollow part, just to give it some additional stiffness. Again, just totally your call. Hopefully some of this reference does help you. Just for random note, where I'm having fitment problems right now because of my extreme roll of the original Fender is right here. I have adhesion issues because I pushed out my original Fender too far. I'm having adhesion issues on this, in this part. It keeps coming up, and for some reason all the way in the back where the aero diffuser is, that's where I'm also having a little bit of trouble. Again, could be totally different for you guys, but just wanted to give you my experience on this entire thing. Is it worth it? I know some people kind of asked on Instagram and made comments. 700 euros before 230 or so dollars shipping probably puts you at about $1,000, give or take, to get these things over to you, plus whatever the cost of the bodywork. So worth it or not, again, it may not be for some. I wanted to experiment with this and just to try to get the first kit on the East Coast to see what it looks like. In retrospect, would I do it again? Well, now that I'm committed, I'm probably stuck, but your call. Hopefully this helps.